Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Ruby. This is Ruby Red, and today I have a new season of the Great British Bake Off. Okay, not exactly, but hear me out. I am a huge fan of Bake Off. I've seen all the seasons. I love the baking part. I love baking and I loved baked goods and I love that element, but I also just love how positive it is. I think we all know it's just a good time. Everybody is there just to do their best, to bake their best bake, and you know, sometimes it just is what it is. But I love the show and I love reading, so I'm gonna combine them. If you've never seen the Great British Bake Off, you should watch that instead of this video probably, but regardless, I will just give you a quick synopsis. The show is a baking competition, and every episode all of the bakers are challenged to do 3 separate baking bakes surrounding a theme for the first 9 episodes, and then the 10th episode is the finale, and that doesn't generally have a theme. The theme is just a lot. So I'm going to offer 9 book recommendations to match 9 themes. 9 themes. Some of the themes are constant. They happen in every single season, but some of them get switched out, so I just grabbed the ones that I thought were the most like classic. And yeah, I'm just going to recommend a book for every week of Bake Off. And before I get into the video, I want to just say that if anybody else out there watching this, why am I praying? If anybody else watching this loves Bake Off and you want to do this same video, you could pick your own weeks and recommend a book for all of them. I will do a series of reading vlogs where I read your season of Bake Off. And if anybody wants to read my season of Bake Off, I would be honored. Got that out of the way. Now let us begin. So week 1 is pretty much always cake week. And this came really easily to mind for me because the whole time that I was reading the book, I was thinking about cake in my head. And the book is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book is not directly about cake or baking at all. It is about a sort of an orphanage for magical children and a government worker who has been sent to inspect the orphanage and decide whether or not it should continue functioning, and he sort of gets swept into their little family. So it's got such a whimsical, soft exterior, but it does definitely deal with some harder themes like self-acceptance and prejudice, and found family. So those are like maybe an exciting filling for this cake, because again, the whole thing is wrapped up in this really cute, sweet story. And while I was reading it, I was like, this is the birthday cake from Milk Bar. I still think that it is that cake as a book, and I will not be dissuaded. Maybe if you were to do a cake week showstopper, you could do like a cake that looked like the cover, where it's like a house precariously perched on the hill. Wow, I hope someone does that. Oh my gosh. For next season. So yeah, for cake week, it's The House in the Cerulean Sea, a sweet, sweet book that I loved. And now let's move on. The next week is Biscuit Week, and every season the showstopper challenge for Biscuit Week invites the bakers, requires the bakers to build something. Like they have to either make like a board game or a toy or like a monument, and you know, you get a variety of different kinds of cookie or biscuit, but the most prevalent one is gingerbread, because if you're going to build something, gingerbread is the sturdiest cookie that you can use to do it. So for that reason, my pick for this week is Gingerbread by Helen Oyeyemi. This is a weird book. It is about a mother and a daughter and their family history, which kind of involves a mystical country and family secrets. There is definitely magic involved, but it's all very surreal. It definitely takes inspiration from various fairy tales that involve gingerbread, and sort of the family legacy is this gingerbread recipe that has, you know, magical powers probably. And it is like so heavy-handed spice-wise that it hurts your tongue to eat, but you also like can't stop. You have to eat the whole thing. And I love that idea. I mean, I have a family gingerbread cookie recipe that does not at all hurt the mouth to eat, but it was passed down from my great grandma at least, and it definitely has like its own magic, you know what I mean? So whatever, gingerbread's magical, and this book really leaned into that. And if you like weird books, I think you'll like this. It is a little bit creepy, it's a little bit confusing, but I just think that the writing is really beautiful, and like some of the plot details really, I was like, how did you think of that? Excellent book, and yeah, let's move on to our next week, which is Bread Week. And I've picked another kind of obvious book for Bread Week, and that is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. I love this book. I think I talked about this in my favorite books of 2020 video, but I'm happy to talk about it again. This is by the same author as Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, if you've read that, and it honestly has the very similar concept. Basically, we have this woman who works in tech. She's working on teaching a robot arm how to act more like an arm and less like a robot. And then she has this series of weird encounters with these two brothers who have a restaurant. Anyway, she becomes the guardian and the keeper of their, you know, decades old, I guess, sourdough starter. Family history, deep with family history again, family and food tied for many people, and that is present in this book. But she gets swept up in this bread world when she comes from a tech world, and she's learning all about these like bread making techniques, and she then gets involved with this weird experimental food group. And yeah, it gets weird. I don't think I can say anything else. I don't think I should say anything else. It's a fantastic book. It is about bread, so I think it'll be perfect for Bread Week, although they've never done sourdough on Bread Week, I guess, because you can't do it that quickly. Anyway, yeah, kind of an obvious pick, but a really, really good book. Kind of, you know, we're melding technology with like, I don't know, like old world, like handcrafted things, and then there's the robot arm. Don't forget the robot arm. So yeah, great, a great read. Oh my gosh. But a little bit magical, you know? All right, let's move on to our next week, Chocolate Week. And this is kind of a dreaded week for me personally on the show, because it just never goes well. Anytime the bakers are required to do any chocolate work, it's a problem, because the show is shooting during the summer. They are in a tent outside, so it is hot, and that is not ideal when doing chocolate work, as you might imagine. So tensions are high, and tensions are also high in this book, Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, but it is a fantastic book. Extremely weird, extremely fun, and fun maybe isn't the right word. bittersweet is actually where I was gonna go. And that's kind of why I picked it, because it is bittersweet like chocolate is. It's kind of dark, but still delicious. This book is about a young woman who, friend of a friend, something, gets asked to work for this family, the family of, I think, an up-and-coming senator, as a nanny for the summer. And he has 2 children from his first marriage that he has just had to sort of adopt. And those children catch on fire when they get upset. So she has to, like, on the DL, monitor them, basically, like, be their nanny, but also try to keep them from catching on fire and injuring themselves or anyone else. And she's like, okay. But then, of course, she gets to know the kids, and it's like a whole thing. Another kind of a found family situation. This book definitely was kind of sad, but it also had moments of extreme hilarity. I love reading about like snarky children, and these 2 definitely are. And then there's also the non-flammable child that the senator has from his second marriage, who is like, I think, extremely like regular, and that adds like a contrasting humor element. So yeah, definitely highly recommend this book for Chocolate Week. Okay, next up we have Caramel Week. This one also not great in the summer heat. And I've also picked a book that is abstract in its caramelness. And that is Just Kids by Patti Smith. Yes, I'm here to talk about Patti Smith again. I can't stop, and I won't stop. I don't want to. I have decided to bring this book for Caramel Week because it is sweet and it is decadent in language, and just incredibly smooth. Again, I'm talking about the writing and the language. Patti Smith is an amazing writer, and this book like is warm overall and also like enveloping. Like, I'm just thinking about like a caramel covering the book, and it's good. This is a memoir that Patti wrote about her early life as a poet, as a musician, a bookseller, an artist, kind of everything. But she was living in New York City in the 60s, and she met Robert Mapplethorpe early on, and then they had whatever, a life together. And the book is a memoir of their time together, and heartbreaking, truly heartbreaking, but so beautiful. Again, I'm gonna say decadent, and sweet. Wow. Also sticky, as in it's stuck in my brain since I read it. It's never once left my brain. I don't know. This one might be my biggest stretch. I will admit that. But if you haven't read Just Kids, you should. It's so good. I really didn't want to read it because I felt like everyone's dad was like all about it. Maybe that's just the kind of dads that I know and my dad. But then when my friends read it and she was like, okay, no, it's really good. You have to read it. And then I was like, well, and then my dad gave me his copy and then I had to read it. And then I was a changed woman. I'm different now. And I'm grateful. So, okay, that concludes Caramel Week. Let's move on. All right, next we're gonna have Dessert Week, and this one is kind of weird. It's a little bit of a catch-all for like anything that doesn't fit neatly into any of the other categories. So this book is that too. And my rationale was kind of just thinking about, you know, a dessert as something that you're gonna enjoy at the end of your meal, right? Like, it's not a scone, it's a brownie. And so I picked Bunny by Mona Awad. Does that make sense to you? Basically, like, again, that book is a fantastic book, and it doesn't necessarily fit neatly into any of the categories that I don't know, like people talk about it as dark academia. It's a fantasy, it's horror, it's a weird book. Kind of a genre bending, label defying book. And that's, you know, why I'm slotting it in here with desserts, where it's just like, whatever, a sweet treat. But I also really feel like Bunny is a book for after dinner. Does that resonate with you? Am I going too far? I don't care. Bunny is a weird story. It's a little book. It's very strange. It's very creepy, about this girl, I think her name is Samantha, who is attending a like creative writing master's program and at some small New England cottage, and there are like 4 other girls in her cohort, I guess, who are weird, and they call each other Bunny. Okay, Bunny, how are you, Bunny? Okay. And then she slowly gets like pulled into their weird little world and all the weird little things that are happening. And I think that book is a dessert. Maybe this is the one that I'm stretching the most. But yeah, this doesn't need to be you know, obvious. We're getting, I don't know. We're just thinking on a lot of levels, okay? And also, like, the sun is setting. I'm sorry, the lighting has drastically changed in here. Okay, I turned on a light. It might be worse, but we're almost done. Well, now we're gonna move into like a decade theme, decade week. They've done 80s week, they did 20s week. One time they did like forgotten bakes week, which is just like historical. So for this decade week, I am choosing my favorite historical fiction novel that feels like a dessert. I don't think it's my favorite of all time. Maybe it's my second favorite, but pachinko does not feel like a baked good to me. So City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert is this week's book. Yeah, this book is about it's sort of like a woman telling the story of her youth, and she moved to New York City for a summer, I guess, with one of her aunts, and this was in like the 40s, and her aunt runs this small theater, and our main character is an excellent seamstress, sewer, I don't know. She starts making all the costumes for this theater, and that's the outline, but it's about it's a love story, and it also really gets into like female sexuality and promiscuity and like female friendship and like, I don't know, love and loss and stuff. It's a really, really good book, and it does have some heavier themes to it, but it's really so sweet. It's so fun and frilly and so good. I highly recommend it regardless. And yeah, that's my decade week bake, is City of Girls, because it's beautiful, and it's a book that's like a dessert but from the past. Okay. Okay, next week on Bake Off we have Pastry Week, and this is another one of the things that we have basically every single season. We have Pastry Week, and it was hard for me to differentiate some of these weeks, but I drew the line here at Pastry because Pastry has a bit of a technical element in that it is about layering of fat within the dough. So that's how you get a flaky crust, is that the fat melts and releases water and steam or something, and then it's flaky. I maybe could have like actually looked that up, but honestly I don't need to. I know that pastry is about making layers in your dough, and so I've picked a book that has a lot of layers in it. And that is The Overstory by Richard Powers. This is a book about trees. This is a book about trees, and it is told from, I think, 7 different perspectives. Not different perspectives, sorry. It's 7 different stories that are all you know, initially separate but eventually come together. This is another book that was maybe one of my favorites from last year. Excellent story. He just came out with a new book. Can't wait to read. It's about trees for the most part, and also, you know, connectedness, humanity, activism, ecological conservation. Several of the story arcs are related to protecting forests and the kind of ecological services that forests provide, how they are like really essential to a healthy earth, etc. But they also are, you know, whatever, they're love stories and they are family stories, and there is tragedy and triumph and lots of information about trees, but not really not given to you in like the way that it would be if it was a nonfiction book, because it's a fictional story, it's a narrative, so you just get little tidbits that I think are more digestible. I don't want to make this sound intimidating, but you know what? It is a big book, and Pastry is intimidating. It doesn't need to be, but I think, you know, it intimidates most people. But yeah, The Overstory by Richard Powers is a fantastic, layered story that I kind of wish I could read again for the first time, but I never will because it's long and I don't really reread books. So my main Pastry book connective element, like the reason that I picked this for the theme, is just that it's got the most perspectives of any book I've ever read, and also in the best way. So there you go. With that, we have now reached our final week before the final, so our semifinals, and that is always Patisserie week, which is a lot like Pastry week, but different. So Patisserie is more about style, flair, you know, like what do you see behind the pastry, in the pastry case at like a French bakery, that's patisserie, okay? It's a lot of beautiful little things that are all perfect, they're all the same, they're so elegant, they're so decadent, you're really probably gonna splurge. That's patisserie to me, okay? So for Patisserie week, I have decided, oh, it's also a classic, so I'm picking a classic. And I'm picking Emma by Jane Austen. Emma is the first Jane Austen book that I read, and I have been this year attempting to read the other 5 books that Jane Austen wrote. That's going so-so at this time, but the year's not over yet. Anyway, Emma, yeah, this is a story about a young woman who is not really interested in marriage. She's just interested in setting other people up and being, you know, like the center of attention. So that's Patisserie, am I right? So it's just about her relationships with her friends and neighbors and some of the goings on in the community and miscommunication, misunderstandings, and of course marriage, because it's a Jane Austen book. And so I selected it as my Patisserie week book because it's indulgent. The language that Jane Austen uses is excessive in some ways. It's decadent, it's indulgent. It's about an extremely wealthy woman, Emma, which feels patisserie. And also, if you have seen the movie that came out last year or the year before, the whole movie looks like a pastry case, you know? Yeah. So, Emma. It's the inspiration for the movie Clueless with Alicia Silverstone. If you don't know that, that's the plot. And that brings us to the end. Those are the 9 themes that I chose for my season of Bake Off. With 9 fantastic books. They're not all gonna be for everybody, but I think one of them at least is gonna be for everybody. But yeah, I mean, baking's like that, you know? It's not always gonna work for everyone. I love Bake Off. All right, well, thank you so much for stopping by and for watching, for liking, for commenting, for subscribing. I appreciate it. And I am actually dying to do a reading vlog where I rate someone else's season of Bake Off, so begging anybody who likes Bake Off to do this, please. And with that, I will bid you adieu. I will take my leave. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.